Shipper-carrier freight rate negotiations are never a picnic, but throw in a deep recession followed by a slow recovery, and they can turn into a real tug-of-war. As we look towards 2013 and beyond, is there a better way forward? At our recent Surface Transportation Summit, a one-day event presented in partnership with Dan Goodwill and Associates, Editorial Director Lou Smerlis spoke to leading motor carrier and shipping executives during a panel session specifically dedicated to rate negotiations. The Shipper-Carrier Rate Panel discussion, sponsored by Shaw Tracking, brought together Michael Tan, Vice President of Supply Chain and Transportation with Hudson's Bay Company, Brian Springer, Vice President of Transportation Eastern Canada with Loblaw Companies, Wesley Armour, President of Armour Transport, and Dan Einwachter, CEO of Challenger Group of Companies. In our previous episode, we looked at how the recession and slow recovery changed their transportation strategies. In this episode, we examine the impact on motor carriers.
Certainly, first thing I'm going to say is that we saw less volumes during this period of time. And it wasn't less customers. All it really meant was the shipments were much smaller. So instead of having a 1,000-pound shipment every week for a customer, you ended up with a 600-pound shipment. And when the vehicle went out, it still had the same number of stops, the same amount of traffic, except the truck was generating a lot less revenue because the shipments were all smaller. That is coming back slowly, but that really was an impact that took us a while to figure out why we weren't getting the same revenue. The other one in our area that really hurt our industry was the closing of the paper mills. Mostly all our paper mills are closed now. I think there's probably the last two being 10 paper mills have closed. Some of these mills are shipping 550 metric ton a day, basically to the U.S. and Ontario and Quebec, and it created a huge imbalance coming eastbound versus going back westbound, and southbound as well. And that really hasn't been able to fix itself and never will, because these mills are closed for good, and that was a huge volume for our industry for years and years to reposition the trucks back in to move the LTL and others in the opposite direction. We certainly went through the fierce competition. We didn't see much in decreases. We were able to hold the rates, but we went 2 to 3 years with absolutely no increases.
The combination of shrinking volumes and depressed rates made for chaotic conditions for Canada's motor carriers, and the challenges they face have not been helped much by the slow economic recovery we've been experiencing. How best to deal with that reality? This is how Dan Einwachter handled it.
You have to be engaged with your employees. You have to fill them in about what's going on in your own company, what's going on in the market around there, because they're wondering, is it just us or is it everywhere? And then they can read the newspaper, so we kept them informed what was going on. We, like Wes, made a serious commitment, even in spite of the economy in the marketplace, to continue to upgrade our equipment. We went into some different markets on our heavy haul, on our wind energy side. Expanded in certain areas, changed some of the van market areas that we went to, faced some additional competition on the van side because the cross-border market was dramatically affected because of the volume of business and the dollar. So a lot of carriers that weren't on the east-west business that we were involved in since 94, 95, they decided to go into that marketplace. So there was a lot of turmoil.
And, according to Armour, those hardships actually made for better carriers.
We sort of thought we had all our costs under control, and we've kind of beaten the dead horse now, and there was no place to go. But what we found out when we started looking, there were better ways to do things. And we started really working on that and been very active on it actually in 2011 and 2012. The other thing was our long-term partnerships. We went out to look for more of those, and obviously losing the paper mills, we had to replace that with other traffic, and we've been able to do that, and we continued to upgrade our trucks through this period of time. We continued to give our people small increases, but an increase in pay so they would stay with us. And now that we're coming out of this recession, we're really in good shape because our equipment is still on the upgrade mode. Our people are staying with us, our key people, and most of our drivers stayed as well through this.
Tune in to our next show as we hear more from our carrier and shipper executives on how they're approaching rate negotiations.